Welcome back. Should the UK be doing more to help children severely injured in Gaza? Many require urgent specialist treatment, but so far Britain has not taken any patients in, and that is despite the best efforts of multiple charities. We'll hear more on that political issue in a moment. First, though, I want to bring you the story of some of those children hoping to come to Britain. A warning, this report from our Middle East correspondent, Alistair Bunkall, contains distressing images.
The pain was so excruciating that Kareem begged the doctors to cut off his leg. Because of the war, they had to do it without an anaesthetic. His screams were so loud that people on the floor above thought that someone was giving birth. This 14-year-old boy, who was top of his class and dreamt of owning his own bike, now thinks he'll never ride one again.
فكريم انا قاعده باجله جو ايش بقول لي يا ماما بقول له نعم بقول لي يما في دبابه على باب الدار.
Kareem started yelling that there was a tank down the street near our house that was telling us to evacuate the area. I ran outside with my daughter to check on him and my husband. They were rushing towards me when a tank opened fire. My husband and I were injured, and so were Kareem and my 12-year-old daughter.
Two British charities, Project Pure Hope and Save a Child, have written to the Foreign and Home Secretaries asking them to evacuate Kareem and 10 other children to the UK for specialist treatment. Other European countries, including France, Italy and Switzerland, have accepted children from Gaza for medical care. Money for their travel and medical costs has already been raised. Their stay in Britain would only be temporary for the course of their treatment. It just needs the British government to sign it off, and they haven't done so.
The patient losing his life because of many difficulties. We face it as a medical teams in this department, so we cannot dealing with these cases. Kareem, now this case is deteriorated day by day.
Zeina was injured in a fire after an airstrike on the camp that she was living in. More than a fifth of her small body is covered in second and third degree burns. Her thighs, the palms of her hands, her chest, back, neck, face and forehead. She's had 16 operations in just 2 months. That's one on average every 3 to 4 days. It is amazing she survived.
One day, at around 2:30 p.m., I went to get bread. When I came back, my wife was screaming that Zeina was injured. I asked her what's happened, and she told me that there was a strike on the refugee camp. Zeina was so scared, she ran into the fire where my wife was cooking.
These children aren't just suffering physical pain, they're experiencing deep trauma too.
Her pain keeps getting worse, and sometimes she wakes up screaming at night. She barely eats. Whenever she sees someone in a medical uniform, she panics and starts screaming. She is always afraid.
The hospitals, so damaged by the fighting, cannot give the children the treatment they need. Asleep or awake, they're haunted by the pain of the injuries and the sounds of war. They have a small chance of recovery. Britain, if only they could go there. Alistair Bunkall, Sky News, in Jerusalem.
Well, the charities Save a Child and Project Pure Hope have shared with Sky News a letter they sent to the government in March asking for help bringing vulnerable Gazan children to Britain. Despite that, a Home Office minister later told the House of Commons no official applications have been received. This morning, Kay Burley asked the Home Secretary why more people in Gaza are not being given treatment in the UK.
There are a whole load of complications about getting people out of Gaza. There are British nationals in Gaza that we're still looking to get out, and that has got to be our priority. But as I say, the best way of helping the most people most quickly is for Hamas to release the hostages, bring this conflict to a conclusion and get the aid, which is sitting ready to go through the Rafah crossing, actually into Gaza. And those are the things we're working on.
Well, the charity Children Not Numbers are also among those campaigning to bring Gazan children to the UK for medical care. I'm joined in the studio by their co-founder, Samaya Wazani. Samaya, thank you for joining us tonight. First of all, what do you make of what the Home Secretary is saying there, what the government is saying about why they've not allowed more Gazan children into the UK to be treated?
Well, I don't think it's complicated at all, to be honest. We are seeing hundreds upon hundreds of children who are losing their lives unnecessarily as a consequence of sustaining severe injuries in circumstances where there are multiple states, including the UK, that are incredibly well placed to receive these children for a very short period of time, treat them and return them.
You gave up your job. You've been involved in this since the beginning of the war. What got you drawn into this? And give us an idea of what you're seeing every day in terms of the needs of these children stuck in Gaza.
It was just the scale of human suffering. It was something that, so many of us have never, ever seen before. It was an unprecedented level of children being maimed, burned, killed in a very short space of time. The doom scrolling was just, it just wasn't enough to do something about it. And actually it was just a human response, an instinctive response to try some way to help these children who are suffering unimaginably.
So they're getting in touch by email, are they? On a daily basis, what are you
So as an NGO, we receive the referrals from hospitals directly in Gaza. These are hospitals that have, they're barely functioning. If it's not communication cuts, it's power cuts. If it's not power cuts, it's the fact that you've got incredibly inexperienced medics doing some of the most, serious and complicated surgeries and medical interventions you can imagine. So they refer the cases to us. We have a team of more than 40 medics in the organisation that triage those cases. So they provide medical input and advice to help keep these children alive and determine which children urgently need medical evacuation.
So one of the big problems now, of course, is that Israel is occupying Rafah in the south of Gaza. How much of an issue is that? Because that presumably is one of the main ways in. We've seen ambulances going in and out of there, getting medical supplies into Gaza, but also getting these desperately needed, these patients with desperate needs out of Gaza for treatment.
It's catastrophic. We as an organisation have lost 15 children since the 7th of May as a consequence of them not being medically evacuated in time. We currently have a number of children that are literally on the knife edge of death, and they're getting closer and closer to now needing palliation because there's no sign of when that crossing will reopen. Even before the 7th of May, there was a massively inadequate number of people coming out. There were 40 injured civilians a day leaving Gaza to cross into Egypt. And of that 40, it would be any number between 3, 10, 20 children, on a good day. But the bottlenecks were enormous. And, we are incredibly concerned about what will happen and the delays that we will experience once that crossing reopens.
I mean, it's all very different, isn't it, to what we saw in the immediate aftermath of the start of the war in Ukraine?
The response has been, negligible at best and non-existent for many states at worst. And that's why organisations like ours, like Project Pure Hope, like Save a Child, have had to essentially respond to this. We are normal people who are going about our lives really impacted by this and had to find a way to respond. Is
it hard to cope with psychologically, knowing that there's many people in Gaza who need help and you're just not able to do enough for them?
Massively, because you can do, you can pull a 20-hour day and you might make some inroads with one child and, the following morning you've got 5, 6, 7 with severe burns, risk of septicemia, organ failure, losing limbs, and that's another huge problem with the Rafah crossing being closed. Children that otherwise had pretty good prospects of survival are now either dying or losing limbs or ending up with much more complicated injuries.
So just briefly, what do you need the British government to do and other European governments to do now?
Accept children. The British government needs to start accepting children now. We have centres of excellence that can meet all of their needs. The European governments need to step up and do more. Egypt has done a significant amount, allowed in thousands of injured Gazans, but that already is a health infrastructure that's under massive pressure, and it never anticipated receiving injured civilians for this long in this way.
Samaya Wazani, thank you very much for joining us on The World tonight. Good luck with your work. Well, as pressure grows on the UK government to help treat injured children in Gaza, in the US, one Palestinian girl has received life-saving treatment thanks to the help of strangers. Shocking footage went viral at the end of last year showing Ahed Bazeo's leg being amputated by her uncle on their kitchen table. Our US correspondent Mark Stone has been following her story and discovered she had conflicting feelings about the country that's taken her in.
Hello?
Yeah, hello.
Aiken, South Carolina.
طيب اوكي خلص خلينا نسوي 18.
It is the unlikeliest of places to begin a story of hope from Gaza.
حبيبي اوكي.
But from this kitchen table, a young American medical student called Tarek is making remarkable things happen.
So many of them are still in Gaza.
On the screen, lists of injured Palestinian children.
Gunshot wound to the eye, injury from explosion, head trauma.
Most are still stuck in Gaza.
The moment they respond, it's like...
But against all odds and between his studies, Tarek is linking a global network of strangers.
At any time, I can call a physician and say, you know, we have this particular case, I'm going to send you the medical file now.
Driven by a need simply to do something, he is working to get them out.
Our team has to compile these medical records for these children. I've seen a lot of difficult things and a lot of difficult injuries that they've had to deal with. And honestly, it breaks my heart because these children don't deserve that. Yeah.
This is the story of one of them.
Her name is Ahed and her uncle amputated her leg without anesthesia.
My uncle put me in the table. I looked around. There was no surgical equipment. He got the washer and the cleaning tools from the kitchen and started to clean my leg. I looked at him and said, "Don't cut my leg off." He started to cry. Then he cut my leg off.
It was lunchtime on Tuesday, December the 19th. An Israeli tank shell hit the family house. It is a wonder Ahed survived. She did so only because her uncle did the unimaginable. An amputation in a war zone with a kitchen knife.
The strength came from within, because I never want to give my occupier the opportunity to kill us all and silence us.
His decision to film it, to make one moment of horror go viral, would precipitate a journey from Gaza to Egypt and then to America.
I kept working on ensuring that we can pull her out.
It took Tarek and his team weeks, coordinating repeated attempts to move her south through Gaza. Convoys hit, visas denied.
And now, thankfully, she's here.
She's here in South Carolina.
She's here.
Her journey now is from South Carolina to Colorado, because the string of strangers compelled to help through every step is taking Ahed with her sister to a doctor in Denver.
Do you have the passport? Okay.
It was Annie Clybourne who found the doctor, another young American who has thrown everything into helping Ahed and many others too.
How are you feeling?
Good.
You're feeling good?
Yes.
Remember, this is a young woman who had until a few months ago never left Gaza.
Welcome to Denver, the local Chinese.
Now in a new world, but her family still stuck back at home. Who knows the burden she's carrying?
So good to see you. I'm so glad you're here. So glad you're here.
Dr. Omar Mubarak is a vascular surgeon who can make things happen. And beyond the welcome, he has arranged for Ahed a new leg.
Excited?
Happy, but I forget my shoes. The right shoes.
You forgot the right shoe. I'm so happy for her right now. So happy to be able to supply this for her.
You're what's brought them to Denver?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay, well, good for you. We'll leave you to it.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
The fitting was a private moment for her. But then a moment we'll all remember. From that day in December, the amputation, a viral video, strangers have brought Ahed a long way.
so happy for you. I don't know how you can see what's going on and not say to yourself, we've got to help these people. It's very painful. I don't think there's a single Arab I know who isn't seriously disturbed by what's going on.
And out of a war which has stirred so much, damaged so many, we found a young woman grateful but conflicted.
When you see people happy to see you or trying their best to support you, you feel that there is someone still care. It is something I will never forget. But the first thing I thought about was how I could leave Gaza and seek treatment in a country that is possibly even more than Israel, largely responsible for my condition. If anyone asked me about it, I would say America kills a person and then attend their funeral.
Ahed will continue her recovery here in America for now. Her dream, though, of course, is to be back home in Gaza with her family.
Well, the most extraordinary story of human endurance there. And Mark Stone, I'm glad to say, joins us now. That was an extraordinary story, extremely powerful reporting, Mark. She's been through an amazing odyssey. What's it been like for you reporting on it?
Well, an extraordinary story of endurance, of bravery, but of extraordinary kindness too, of the kindness of strangers. So many different characters that we met along the way, people that we were not aware were part of the story, but became part of it, became part of the story we were telling as we met them. The doctor, Omar Mubarak, a very successful, well-known doctor in Denver, Colorado, who himself only became aware of Ahed's case when Annie Clybourne, the young American woman who you saw in the report there, who works for the PCRF, this extraordinary charity, one among many that do such extraordinary work, she sought out the doctor in Denver and then arranged for Ahed to move from Greenville, South Carolina, to Denver. And what was she doing in Greenville? Well, that was Tariq Haliat's part in this story. And he honestly is an extraordinary person indeed. He is a young medical student. He's in his mid-20s. He, in fact, did his major medical exam just yesterday. But the other job that he is doing is trying to get as many young people out of Gaza as he can. He's working part-time, pretty much full-time now for the PCRF, and they are trying to extract as many children as they can. And it's really complicated work. It took 18 attempts, I think, to get Ahed out of Gaza. The convoy she was in at one stage was fired upon, and the vehicle behind the one she was in was destroyed. But through this network of strangers and governments as well, they managed to get Ahed and about 100 other young people out of Gaza. Some of them have come to the United States. Many, of course, have gone to the region, to the United Arab Emirates, who are doing remarkable work, to Qatar as well. They all go to Egypt first. Of course, they want to stay in the Middle East. The preference for these charities is to keep the people that they are trying to save in the Middle East, because it is easier for them to recover there in their own culture. But sometimes it is the requirement is to bring them to America, and that is what has happened for Ahed and many others. But as you've been reporting, the UK has, for reasons they've not explained, chosen to not take any Gazan injured at all.
And it's worth stressing, Mark, isn't it? Because we've both reported in Gaza many times, in better times, that Gazans love the place. I mean, it's seen, I think, around the world as hell on earth at the moment, as it is. But Gazans are very fond of it. And as we heard from Ahed there, she wants to go back there as soon as she can. She's clearly, facing conflicting emotions about that, but also to do with the country that has rescued her and given this extraordinary treatment, but also in her mind is responsible for a lot of the suffering of her family and others like her in Gaza. I mean, describe the emotions that she's been going through, that she shared with you.
hugely conflicted. That much was clear in the time we got to know her. For me, there were two questions that I was really keen to understand from her. The one, having seen the video myself, I remember in December on Instagram seeing that video of her uncle cutting off her leg. It was an extraordinary video to watch. At the time, I wondered why she wasn't screaming, and I suppose that was the more trivial question I had for her. And she said simply that it was because she didn't want to give the other side, the occupier, as she called Israel, the gratitude or the gratitude of having seen that happen. So she was silent throughout that process. The other question I wanted to know was how she felt being in America, because of course America is the greatest supporter of Israel. It may well have been an American-made tank shell that hit her house. I thought that her phraseology was very striking. She said, America is the country that kills you and then attends your funeral. A very conflicted woman, but clearly a woman who was very, very grateful for the kindness that she has found here in America. But yes, she wants to get back to her family in Gaza as soon as she can.
Mark Stone, thank you for that. The triumph of human spirit over adversity there in Gaza.